Welcome to another Humm Baby Baseball video, and today I present my ultimate 26-man MLB prison roster of former MLB players who for some reason or another served hard time. This video was voted on by members. I appreciate your vote. If you want to participate, feel free to check out the join button down below or join me for my San Francisco Giants post-game shows where we constantly gift out free memberships. To make this roster, the player has to have actually been convicted and served time, not just accused, with one exception for a player who is still going to trial right now. You probably know who I'm talking about. I do want to say, this is just for fun. Everyone makes mistakes, and I'm not trying to shame any of these guys. They're not all bad people. There are a couple of exceptions. There are a couple of players who committed some really horrible and unforgivable crimes. But for the most part, with a couple of disgusting exceptions, I'm not saying these are bad people, but I do want to see how good of a team an all-felon MLB All-Star team can be. So let's get into this team, which is completely stacked and probably good enough if everyone was in their primes to go win a World Series championship. I'll talk about each player, explaining how good they were, and I'll touch on what went wrong and how they ended up in the slammer. We'll do a rotation, bullpen, bench, and a starting lineup. Starting rotation, we will start with a 5-man rotation consisting of starters who in their prime were basically unhittable. Number 1, Dwight Doc Gooden, right-handed pitcher, the ace of the staff, has to be the electric Doc Gooden, who pitched for 16 seasons in the big leagues, took home a Rookie of the Year, Cy Young Award, Silver Slugger, and 3 World Series rings. He made 4 All-Star teams and even won the pitcher's Triple Crown. In 1985, he was untouchable, going 24-4 with a 1.53 ERA and league-leading 268 strikeouts. He was a key member of the Mets' 1986 World Series championship team, and by 1990 looked like a surefire future Hall of Famer. Unfortunately, his career was derailed by cocaine and alcohol addiction, and although he continued to have great moments such as a no-hitter with the 1996 world champion New York Yankees, his career dramatically slowed down in the 90s. He was arrested multiple times for things like DUI, driving with suspended license, violating probation, and leaving the scene of an accident. In 2005, he was booked for felony charges of fleeing police and misdemeanor DUI. He got probation, but after showing up to a meeting with his probation officer high on cocaine, he was sentenced to a year in prison and served 7 months. Gooden was arrested again in 2010 for DWI, leaving the scene of a traffic accident and endangering the welfare of a child who was with him at the time of the accident. He was also arrested in 2019 for possession of cocaine and was given 1 year probation. Number 2, Vida Blue. The great Vida Blue doesn't have a rap sheet nearly as long as Gooden's, but he did struggle with substance abuse, and it landed him in prison. As for his baseball career, Blue was a 6-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champion, Cy Young Award winner, and MVP. He made 3 All-Star teams with the A's and 3 with the Giants, and is an absolute legend in the Bay Area. At his best, in 1971, he went 24-8 with a 1.82 ERA, 24 complete games, and a league-leading 8 shutouts. After the 1983 season with the Royals, Blue was arrested for attempting to purchase cocaine along with 3 other players, Willie Wilson, Jerry Martin, and Willie Aikens. Blue was sentenced to 3 months in prison, was suspended for the 1984 season, but he returned in '85 back with the Giants and retired after 1986 with 209 career wins. Number 3, Denny McLain, right-handed pitcher. Next up in the all-felon rotation is the most recent pitcher to win 30 games in a season, Denny McLain. During the late 60s, no one was better, and he won 2 Cy Young Awards and an MVP. In 1968, he went 31-6 with a 1.96 ERA, 28 complete games, and 6 shutouts. He had a reputation as being very brash and outspoken during his career, and was a very unorthodox individual in general. In 1969, he missed the beginning of the All-Star game that he was scheduled to start because of a dental appointment, but he flew himself to the game on an airplane after the appointment and made it in time to pitch the 4th inning. There were rumors that he was involved in illegal bookmaking and even the mafia. He was suspended for his involvement in gambling, and his stats began to suffer in the 70s due to arm issues. After retiring from baseball, he continued to involve himself in illegal activities and was arrested for all types of crimes. His first stint in prison occurred in the mid-'80s for racketeering, but McClain served just 29 months of a 23-year sentence when his conviction was overturned. But later in 1996, he was convicted on charges of embezzlement, mail fraud, and conspiracy in connection with the theft of $2.5 million from a pension fund. He spent 6 years behind bars. Number 4, Lamar Hoyt, right-handed pitcher. One of the forgotten superstars of the early 80s, Lamar Hoyt won the Cy Young Award in 1983 with the White Sox after going 24-10 with pinpoint control that resulted in a 1.1/9 walk ratio. He also led the league with 19 wins in 1982. He made the All-Star game with the Padres in 1985, and that year walked just 20 batters in over 210 innings of work. During that offseason, he was arrested twice for possession of drugs. Hoyt did return in '86 and made 25 starts, but after the season, was arrested for bringing drugs into the States across the U.S.-Mexico border and was sentenced to 45 days in jail. A fourth drug arrest in 1987 ended his career, and Hoyt was charged with a felony and sentenced to a year in prison. He had the ability to have a great MLB career, but his drug addiction completely derailed it. Number 5, Jerry Koosman, left-handed pitcher, who pitched for 19 years in the big leagues, making 2 All-Star teams and helping the 1969 Miracle Mets win it all with 2 brilliant starts in the World Series. He struck out over 2,500 hitters in his career, and in 1976 went 21-10 and finished second for the Cy Young Award. Unlike many of these players, he was not known for legal troubles, but in 2009, he pled guilty to federal tax evasion after not paying federal income taxes from 2002 to 2004. He said he was suckered by the anti-tax movement at the time. Koosman spent 6 months in a federal prison camp. Bullpen. The bullpen will consist of 9 arms, including a setup man and closer. Pat Jarvis, right-handed pitcher, known as the Little Bulldog. At 5'10", Jarvis spent most of his career as a starter with the Braves, winning at least 13 games for 4 straight seasons. He went 16-12 with a 2.6 ERA in 1968, with 14 complete games and a shutout. In the early 70s, he moved to the bullpen and became a very solid reliever until he retired. Jarvis became a sheriff afterwards and held the job for 19 years. But in 1999, after an investigation of some of his actions as sheriff, he was arrested for mail fraud and pocketing as much as $200,000 in kickbacks. He pled guilty and served a 15-month prison sentence. Sammy Stewart, right-handed pitcher. Stewart was a reliable relief pitcher for 10 years in the big leagues, mostly with the Orioles. In 1981, he led the league with a 2.32 ERA, finishing 18 games. In '83, he was a dominant part of the O's bullpen and threw over 9 shutout innings throughout the playoffs, culminating in a World Series championship. In nearly 1,000 career innings, he had a very solid 3.59 ERA. Sadly, he became addicted to crack cocaine after retiring from baseball as a coping mechanism because he missed playing the game, and he was arrested over 25 times for a variety of crimes, including possession of crack cocaine, driving on a suspended license, larceny, and domestic disturbances. He served several prison sentences, usually less than a year, until the big one finally happened in 2006, when he was sentenced as a habitual offender to 80 months in prison. He was released in 2013 and passed away in 2018. Larry Sorensen, right-handed pitcher, a solid long reliever for the All-Felon team, will be 1978 All-Star Larry Sorensen, who pitched in 346 career games for the Brewers, Cardinals, Indians, A's, Cubs, Expos, and Giants. In 1978, he won 18 games with a 3.31 ERA, 17 complete games, and 3 shutouts. He dominated in the All-Star game, throwing 3 scoreless innings, retiring 9 consecutive batters. Unfortunately, Sorensen was part of the 1986 MLB drug controversy and was suspended 60 games. He continued to have substance abuse issues after retirement and was arrested for multiple DUIs. After his 6th DUI in 2004, in which he drove into a ditch, he was convicted of a felony and sentenced to 23 months in prison. He committed a 7th DUI in 2009 and went to prison again, but finally quit drinking in 2011. Oil Can Boyd, right-handed pitcher. Oil Can Boyd only played 10 years in the big leagues and was never the most dominant arm, but was definitely unforgettable. In 1986, he went 16-10 with a 3.78 ERA and helped the Red Sox make the World Series by throwing 7 strong innings against the Angels in Game 6 of the ALCS. However, he was also a controversial figure and was unavailable to pitch Game 7 of the World Series because he was drunk. In 1986, he was arrested for failing to pay an old traffic ticket. He even ran into controversy in 1987 due to overdue video rentals. In his autobiography, Boyd said he was high on marijuana in every game he played from Little League to college, and in the big leagues, especially in 1986, he smoked crack cocaine before every start. In 2005, after his playing days were over, he was arrested for making threatening phone calls to his ex-girlfriend, and the threats were so serious that he was charged and convicted and ended up spending 120 days behind bars. Esteban Loaiza, right-handed pitcher, two-time All-Star Esteban Loaiza pitched for 14 years in the big leagues and had his best year in 2003 when he went 21-9 with a 2.9 ERA. He started the All-Star game that year and led the league in strikeouts. Apart from that, however, he had a lot of ups and downs and struggled to find consistency in his career. He was arrested in 2006 for driving his Ferrari under the influence at 120 miles per hour. But that's not what landed him a long-term prison sentence. It was in 2018. Loaiza was hit with multiple felony charges for possessing over 20 kilos of cocaine with intent to distribute. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison to conclude with a deportation back to Mexico, which happened in 2021. Rick Camp, right-handed pitcher. Rick Camp will always be remembered for the most unlikely home run in baseball history, which he hit on July 4th, 1985 in the 18th inning of a game that refused to end. The game had rain delays, multiple ejections, and just when it looked like the Mets were going to seal the victory, with the relief pitcher Rick Camp at the plate, who had a career .074 average with no home runs, he crushed a game-tying bomb. But Camp was also a solid reliever with a career 3.37 ERA over 9 years with 57 saves. Several years after his career, in 2005, he was sentenced to up to 3 years in prison for conspiring to steal more than $2 million from a mental health agency in Georgia. He served his time and was released in 2007. Matt Bush, right-handed pitcher. Matt Bush has one of the most wild stories of any MLB player in the history of the game. He was the first overall pick in 2004 by the Padres as a position player, but almost immediately proved to be a complete loose cannon with major anger management issues. He was suspended for a bar fight before even making his minor league debut. When he finally did play, his hitting was not too impressive, and the Padres converted him into a pitcher. And he looked like he might excel in the role before he beat up 2 lacrosse players in a drunken rage at a high school parking lot. The Padres DFA'd him and he signed with the Blue Jays, but almost immediately attacked a woman at a party, throwing a baseball at her head and banging on her car window because she drew markings on his face while he was passed out. Jays released him, but the prison time came due to something even more horrific, a wild night in which Bush got into 3 hit-and-run accidents in a Dodge Durango, the final one with a man on a motorcycle, and Bush ran over the man's head while driving off. The man did not die because of his helmet, but was severely injured and would never be the same again. Bush was convicted and spent 3.5 years in prison, but afterwards made a miraculous comeback and ended up pitching in the big leagues for the Rangers in 2016. He had a 2.48 ERA and over 61 innings of work and went on to pitch in parts of 6 big league seasons. Who knows how good he might have been had he never messed with the booze. Uguer Urbina, right-handed pitcher, setup man. One of the most elite MLB closers of the late 90s and early 2000s, Uguer Urbina finished his career with 237 saves and over 800 strikeouts. He made 2 All-Star teams and in 1999 led the league with 41 saves, striking out 100 batters in 75 innings. He could dominate the competition with a variety of nasty pitches, including a hard splitter and deadly slider. But his career came to a screeching halt in 2005 when he was arrested for a terrifying incident in which he and a couple other men hunted down 5 farm workers who worked on Urbina's property, attacked them with machetes, and poured gasoline on them, threatening to burn them to death. Urbina claimed he believed one of them stole his gun. Urbina was convicted and sentenced to 14.5 years in prison for attempted murder. He was released after about 7 years and returned to playing baseball in Venezuela. Felipe Vazquez, left-handed pitcher, closer. During the end of the 2010s, one of the most exciting and electric young closers in the game was the Pittsburgh Pirates' Felipe Vazquez, who was an All-Star in 2018 and 2019. From 2017 to 2019, he saved 85 games for Pittsburgh, and in 2019 had an ERA of 1.65, striking out 13.5 batters per 9. He was almost untouchable and had a chance to go on to make many more All-Star games and perhaps even become a Hall of Fame caliber reliever. But he threw all of that away by his disgusting actions. In 2019, he was arrested for soliciting a child, providing obscene material to minors, and having a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old girl. The list of crimes is too disturbing to repeat, and Vazquez was eventually convicted on 15 counts, including corruption of a minor and statutory sexual assault. He was given a ridiculously light sentence, in my opinion, of just 2 to 4 years. Now on to the bench, which has 3 players. Lenny Dykstra, outfield. The speedy, rough, and tough Lenny Dykstra had a fantastic 12-year career in which he made 3 All-Star teams and won a Silver Slugger. He led the league in hits twice and finished second for the MVP award in 1993. His walk-off homer in Game 3 of the 1986 NLCS is one of the most famous bombs in baseball history. But he has had a history of wild controversies, crimes, and exploits, including steroid usage, bad checks, theft, terrorist threats, DUIs, car crashes, indecent exposure charges, sexual assault allegations, and even grand theft auto. The indecent exposure charges in 2009 landed him in jail for 9 months. In 2012, Dykstra was sentenced to 3 years in a California state prison for grand theft auto after providing false financial statements to dealerships in order to steal new luxury cars. He went to jail again in 2013 for multiple counts of possessing drugs such as cocaine and ecstasy. In other words, Nails, as they call him, is a crazy dude, but he's still alive, currently out of prison, and putting up his opinions on X regularly. Pinky Higgins, infield. 3-time All-Star Pinky Higgins played in the 30s and 40s and was a consistent 300 hitter who got MVP votes in 5 separate seasons. In 1934, he hit .330 and also had some pop, smashing 23 bombs in 1935. Higgins drove in over 100 runs twice and had a very respectable 14-year big league career in which he set an MLB record at one point with a hit in 12 consecutive at-bats. He went on to manage the Red Sox, who he also played for several years. Many historians say Higgins was against racial integration, which is a big reason why the Red Sox were the last team to break the color barrier. What is known for sure is he had a huge drinking problem, and in February of 1968, while intoxicated, he struck and killed a highway worker with his car. Higgins was sentenced to 4 years in prison doing hard labor, and his health deteriorated during that time, and he had 2 heart attacks, which he survived, but within 48 hours of completing his sentence, he suffered a 3rd heart attack and died. Ron LeFlore, outfield. I wanted to add at least one player on this roster who served his prison time not after his career, but before it, and then changed his life for the better and went on to play Major League Baseball. Ron LeFlore was born in Detroit and involved in a criminal lifestyle from his early days. He became a heroin addict and a drug dealer, dropping out of school, and he didn't even play sports. In January of 1970, at the age of 15, he was arrested for taking a rifle into a bar and committing armed robbery. He was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. And it was during his incarceration that he started to play baseball and became so good that he caught the attention of Detroit Tigers manager Billy Martin, who went to watch him play. Martin was able to get a one-day pass for LeFlore, in which he attended a tryout at Tiger Stadium. He impressed so much that Martin arranged for his parole on the condition that he maintain a job. And that job, of course, would be as a professional ball player. LeFlore destroyed the minor leagues and ended up in the Tigers lineup by 1974. He played Major League Baseball for 9 years, hitting .288 with 59 home runs. And he was an elite defender and runner, stealing a league-leading 97 bases in 1980, a number unheard of today. Starting lineup. Leading off, center fielder Willie Wilson. Leading off will be the lightning-fast Willie Wilson, who played in the big leagues for 19 years and accumulated 668 stolen bases, good enough for 12th all-time. He led the league in triples 5 times, including an insane 21 triples in 1985. He was a Gold Glove outfielder who could swing the bat, hitting .332 in 1982, taking home the Silver Slugger Award. He hit .285 for his career, which included over 2,200 hits. But as mentioned earlier, Willie Wilson was one of the men arrested along with Vida Blue for attempting to purchase cocaine in 1983. He served about 3 months in prison. Batting second, second baseman Pete Rose. Batting second and playing second will be Pete Rose, who did play second base during the first 4 years of his big league career. Rose, of course, needs no introduction. The Hit King holds the MLB record with an almost incomprehensible 4,256 hits. He led the league in hits 7 times and hit .303 for his career. He's also extremely decorated with 17 All-Star appearances, an MVP, Rookie of the Year, 2 Gold Gloves, a Silver Slugger, and even a World Series MVP. Of course, he would have waltzed into the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility if he didn't get banned for life from Major League Baseball for gambling on games while he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. But that 1989 ban was just the beginning of his downfall. In 1990, the IRS came after Rose for not paying income taxes for money made selling autographs and memorabilia, as well as profits from horse race betting. He was charged, pled guilty to federal tax evasion, and ended up serving 5 months in a federal prison camp. Batting third, left field, Orlando Cepeda. Batting third in the lineup will be the legendary Orlando Cepeda, aka the Baby Bull, the first actual Hall of Famer on the team. Cepeda had an amazing 17-year career in which he made 11 All-Star teams and won an MVP and Rookie of the Year award. In 1961, he crushed 42 home runs with 142 RBIs. Cepeda was not only a great player, but a humanitarian and a goodwill ambassador for many years until he recently passed away. But he did make one critical mistake, which definitely hurt his reputation for a time until he repaired it. In 1975, just 1 year after his last MLB game, he traveled to Colombia for a baseball clinic. Drug dealers approached him and convinced him to pick up bags of marijuana at the airport in Puerto Rico. The drugs were discovered there by authorities, and once Cepeda took them into his possession, he was arrested and charged. He served 10 months of a 5-year sentence in prison and the rest on probation. Batting fourth, DH, Darryl Strawberry. Hitting cleanup will be the first overall pick in 1980, Darryl Strawberry. He was a consistent producer and possible future Hall of Famer through his first 9 MLB seasons, mostly with the Mets, averaging 31 bombs per season and making the All-Star team almost every year. He won the Rookie of the Year award in 1983 and finished in the top 3 for MVP twice. By the end of the 91 season, he was on pace to threaten Hank Aaron's career home run record. But in 1992, now with the Dodgers, things began to fall apart for the straw man as he couldn't stay healthy or productive. In 1995, after a short stint with the Giants, he tested positive for cocaine and was suspended. He also got in trouble for failing to pay child support. In 1999, he was arrested for soliciting sex from an officer posing as a prostitute. In 2000, he rear-ended another car and attempted to flee, but was chased down by police. Incidents like this kept happening, and he somehow avoided prison time until 2002, when some judge finally had enough and sent Strawberry to prison to serve his remaining time he had on parole and house arrest for prior convictions, which was 22 months. Since his prison term, he stayed out of trouble for the most part. Batting fifth, shortstop, Wander Franco. I had to cheat a little bit here to find a starting shortstop, and it'll be the top prospect for the all-prison team, Wander Franco, who has not been convicted yet, but it looks very possible that he's heading to the big house. If he's eventually acquitted, I'll definitely update the prison roster, which will also be on my website. Of course, Wander Franco's a switch-hitting shortstop who is one of the most electric players in recent memory. He has a great glove, hits for average and power, and can fly on the base paths. Prior to the 2020 season, he was ranked as the #1 prospect in all of baseball. The Rays were so excited, they signed him to an 11-year, $182 million extension. He made his first and probably last All-Star team in 2023. Then, in the second half of the season, he was suddenly placed on administrative leave due to allegations of inappropriate relationships with underage girls in his native Dominican Republic. Photos and social media posts revealed a possible relationship he had with a 14-year-old girl. Dominican Republic authorities began their investigation, and Franco was eventually removed from the Rays' 40-man roster. Authorities released 600 pages of evidence showing Franco had a relationship with the 14-year-old girl and paid the girl's mom cash and a car in exchange for consenting to the relationship. He was formally charged earlier this month, July of 24, with sexual abuse and human trafficking. If guilty, he could face up to 20 years in prison. Batting sixth, right fielder Raul Mondesi. In the early to mid-90s, Raul Mondesi was one of the hottest names in baseball as a powerful Dodgers outfielder who had an absolute rocket for an arm. He was the 1994 Rookie of the Year, and from 95 to 2003, a 9-year stretch, he never ended a season with less than 22 bombs. He was an all-star and 2-time Gold Glover with insane speed and joined the 30-30 Club twice. After his career, he entered politics and became the mayor of San Cristobal in the Dominican Republic. During his time as mayor, he acted in corrupt ways, mishandling public funds and embezzling about $6 million. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison, but served most of it under house arrest as he awaited his appeals. In July of 2024, his final sentence was reduced to 6 years, and he was considered free, having already served his time. Batting seventh, catcher Carlton Fisk. Unfortunately for my video, catchers are very, very well-behaved individuals, and I was not able to find one MLB catcher who had a decent career who also committed a felony and served serious time. So for now, I'm going to go with Carlton Fisk, who was obviously a Hall of Fame catcher who lasted 24 years in the big leagues as a catcher. He was a Rookie of the Year, 11-time All-Star, Gold Glover who smashed 376 bombs, including one of the most legendary shots in the history of the game, a walk-off homer off the foul pole in Game 6 of the '75 World Series. And although Fisk never really served hard time, he was arrested for DUI after the cops found him passed out in his pickup truck, which he drove into a ditch after falling asleep. He spent a little time in jail before being bailed out and eventually pled guilty to DUI. He was sentenced to a year of supervision and had to pay $1,250 in court costs. Batting eighth, first baseman Mark Grace. Mark Grace was a staple in the Chicago Cubs lineup in the 80s and 90s, but also reportedly a staple at the local bars where he enjoyed drinking. He was an elite first baseman and won 4 Gold Gloves while being a constant producer at the plate, hitting .303 throughout his career. He made 3 All-Star teams, eventually signed with the Diamondbacks, with whom he helped win a World Series championship in 2001 by hitting .375 in the NLCS. He went on to become a broadcaster for the D-backs. Around 2012, Grace was busted twice in a 15-month period for DUIs. After the second one, a grand jury indicted him on 4 felony counts of aggravated DUI. At first, he pled not guilty, but after facing 4 years in prison, he agreed to a plea bargain, was convicted of felony endangerment and misdemeanor DUI, sentenced to 4 months behind bars with work release, plus 3 years probation and an interlock device on his vehicle for 6 months. He returned to work with the D-backs as a minor league roving instructor and eventually returned to TV as a pre- and post-game analyst. Batting ninth, third baseman Hank Thompson. Hitting ninth in the lineup is third baseman Hank Thompson, who played 12 years in the big leagues, missing 2 due to World War II. He was a historic player, being the first black player to play in both the AL and NL, and he broke the color barrier for 2 MLB teams. He was a solid power hitter for the New York Giants in the 1950s and hit at least 20 home runs 3 times with 144 total in his career. He hit .364 in the '54 World Series, helping the Giants win their last World Series in New York, which would be the last championship for the Giants until 2010. Like so many players on this roster, he also struggled with alcoholism, and it affected his career greatly. If not for the sum of his personal demons, he could have had a Hall of Fame caliber career, said Negro League Hall of Fame Museum President Bob Kendrick. After retiring, Thompson became a cab driver, but ran into financial troubles following a divorce. He was convicted of armed robbery in Texas in 1963 and sentenced to serve 10 years in prison. After about 3 years, he was paroled and moved to Fresno, California. He sadly died of a seizure at the young age of 43. And that does it for my all-time prison roster of baseball greats who did time. It turned out to be a great-looking team. Let me know your thoughts down below on my 26-man felon roster. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe button, and all due respect to all those on the list who made a mistake but still had productive lives. Although, yes, there are a couple on here who deserve to just go ahead and stay in prison for the rest of their lives, or at least the majority of it. Have a great day. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you in the next video.